My name is Carrie Denning Jackson. I lead innovation at Jamestown LP. We're a global real estate firm. We have assets like One Times Square in New York City, where the ball drops, Pond City Market in Atlanta. We're known for our big mixed-use assets, as well as office and some level of residential. Within my role, I cover a bunch of different areas. So various pilots and rollouts at the assets, which can be everything from parking technologies and EVs through to family amenities. I also manage our data and research arm, so that's a lot of understanding markets and GDP growth and travel, as well as foot traffic and sales of the assets. And then the last piece is our digital transformation work, so that's really getting all of our internal tools really firing on all cylinders, and data warehouse work and generative AI and automation. Just have to mention, I worked at Sidewalk Labs for 5.5 years prior to this role, so I lived in Toronto briefly. I want to mention 3 different things, and there's probably more, additional impactful as well, but the 3 that come to mind are really all around data, which is probably no surprise. The first one that I think about is data at the property level, and there are a lot of interesting companies out there that are starting to consolidate. And we've seen it before, but I think that these have real momentum. In addition, we've often seen different point solutions out there, which are easier to do and easier to implement. It's the broader consolidation that's harder. But I'm seeing things like Code Labs that's consolidating a lot of data at the asset around ESG or property management. I'm also seeing one called Cove, which we're looking to pilot, that combines tenant experience as well as property management. So you start to consolidate, and in a good way, you can start moving away from individual platforms. The next area I'm seeing is also data, but in a different function, more in the data and research work we do around understanding who's coming to the asset and then what are they doing. So we're starting what we believe is somewhat of a first of a kind pilot with 3 different vendors. The first is Placer AI, and they're able to give us a sense of who is coming to our assets, where are they coming from? What type of demographic are they? This is all anonymized. It's completely fine above board, but they give us a sense of who's coming, where they're coming from. Then we're working with a group called FIMA, which comes out of Europe, and they're able to look at our camera systems. They're a back-end software platform for our cameras, and we're able to see, again, fully anonymized, where people are going at the asset. We're able to track, is it a man? Is it a woman? Is it a couple? Is there a stroller? So you really get the full sense of who's coming and going, which is amazing because you can see, is that nook and cranny family friendly? Is it not? Do you want that or not? Then we tie that in with a company called Guest, which ties into our tenants' point of sale system and tells us, are people converting? So we're able to see the full funnel. And that's a fantastic thing to understand. Again, what's not working at the asset, what's working. Guest also ties sales to weather, which is also just a fantastic thing to see. Is it when it's raining, what happens, what doesn't happen? So that's been something that I'm really, really excited about. And then the last is seemingly mundane, but it's transparency. And tech just enables that. It's not like it's some incredibly new thing, but we have 2 platforms that just allow us greater transparency and greater execution as a result. So one of them is called AuditMate. It's an elevator vendor management platform, but it gives us a sense of per our contracts, are the operators doing what we're paying them to do, which sometimes doesn't happen in the elevator industry. So it gives us that transparency and that enforcement. And then the second one that I really like, we're excited about, is called Zentility. It's free for us, the utilities pay, but in states that are deregulated, where we have to procure our own energy, the platform allows us transparency into the rates. And so we can purchase at different rates of obviously the best rate. We can also understand where there's renewables or not. So it's just a transparency platform, but both of these things give us the best bottom line for us. First, on the ESG and the decarbonization front, that's a huge piece. I see it in 2 different ways. One is using, there's a variety of systems. There's what you can do with the asset when you own it, notably with energy efficiency. So we're working with a really great group called Prescriptive Data, where we've piloted them successfully. Now we've rolled them out, where they use weather and foot traffic to optimize our HVAC systems. So we can change the ramp times and save money as a result, and obviously energy and carbon. The second one that I think is really interesting and moves away from the operations of the asset is actually the building materials. So mass timber is a really, really interesting building material. It's wood, it's cross-laminated timber, so it's basically wooden beams that are squeezed tightly together. They're super stable, and it's a much more sustainable way of constructing than steel and concrete, which seems counterintuitive, but trees are renewable and they sequester carbon. So we just built the largest mass timber building in the Southeast in Atlanta. And so that to us is a really exciting way of moving the ESG conversation forward. On the social front, this is really, really important to Jamestown and probably one of the cornerstones of where we're at as a company, and always have been. Placemaking is the most important thing for us. If you go to Ponce City Market, we have run clubs, we have farmers markets, we always have tenant experience apps at our residential, which connect people and have events. And it's not just service for us, it's really, really top of mind. At the end of the day, we care about placemaking, and that's the number one thing, is driving community in many, many, many ways. I would say AI has really always been part of the conversation. So when I mention companies like Prescriptive Data or Zentility or even AuditMate, they're all AI driven, and many of them have been around for some time. So AI is something that we've always really had in our operations, and it's really evolved, especially with the generative capabilities. So just to start, with an example, we use AI at our assets for license plate readers with our parking system. So it's a really seamless experience. So we've really seen that be very valuable for us. Then as you progress it further to today with generative AI, we've been experimenting with different leasing bots that you can use online if you're looking for, we use that at our residential assets. So they essentially act as an information broker. So you can be typing in questions after hours and get insight back. So you're not waiting for, the business opening hours. It is hard to innovate in any industry. I find that it's generally not the technology. It's not sourcing the technology. There are so many great technologies out there with fantastic companies, especially when they come from the real estate sector and then see a problem, invent the tech. They're fantastic. The problem is execution. And it's really, I see it as twofold. One, it's all of the buildings are different, at least for us. The solution I mentioned, Prescriptive Data, isn't going to scale at all of our assets. Likewise, Zentility, the energy procurement, only works in deregulated states in the United States. So it's very hard to scale this stuff, and our teams have limited bandwidth, and it just takes time. The second is change management. It's not necessarily that there's resistance, it's just hard to change how people do their jobs. And, it's people come and go. There's onboarding, there's offboarding. So how do you create the culture where there's shared understanding and you can implement smoothly?